Did you know about the different kinds of attacks you can do with a Beyblade? Me either. As a new player, I had no idea there were multiple attack types. I figured if you were attacking, you just sent it as hard as you could, which I learned definitely wasn't the case. So understanding what your Beyblade excels at feels important for evaluating a setup. One thing I noticed while searching around for information is that I've seen multiple names or conflicting names for what an attack style is called, so I'm going to call each attack by the name I've most commonly seen. But this is definitely a spot where I'd love if those in the community that know could clarify if the names I've used are right or the most commonly used ones. First up is the upper attack. This one tripped me up at first as the name made me think it meant the attack was coming from above, but most commonly I've seen this used to describe attacks that come from below and either go for the ratchet or are meant to lift the opposing bay up off the stadium floor by hitting the blade from below. This results in either destabilizing the opposing bay to make it spin out sooner, or knocks it out of the arena. There's an important aspect of this attack type that relates to the build of the attack bay, specifically for the lifting portion of this attack. It will be more successful if using a blade that has slopes going upwards opposite the direction it's spinning. This allows the blade to become a ramp on contact with an opposing bay when you hit underneath the opposing bay's blade. While that does seem to be the primary goal of this attack style, as mentioned earlier, you can also hit the ratchet and go for a burst finish. Since the attack is already going to be underneath the opposing blade, a burst is always a possibility. I don't think I'd call it a backup option, but more like an extra bonus you might get. Now, in contrast to the upper attack, we have the lower attack, which follows the naming trend as it comes from above and not below. The objective is to destabilize the opposing bay by knocking it off balance from above. This seems like an option for taller setups, and it might be why I remember seeing posts and comments about Night Lance being a great counterattacker. I didn't fully get it at the time, but maybe it's because it was able to absorb an attack and come back to hit from above. So unlike the blade being the defining feature of an upper attack, the focus of a lower attack build seems to be the height. This may be my inexperience talking, but it feels like there's less opportunity for the lower attacks to be initial attacks, but more attacks in response, maybe suited more to a defense or stamina setup. Or at least more of a situational attack, like if against an angled launch, a lower attack may have a better matchup. Then we get to smash attacks. This time the name is very fitting for the description and what I initially envisioned when I thought about attacking in Beyblade. It's all about slamming into the opposing bay with enough force to knock it out of the stadium. As simple as the concept is, there are some things to keep in mind with this kind of attack. It often results in high recoil for the attacking bay, so it's entirely possible that the backlash to an attack can send your bay out of the stadium for a self-KO. With that warning in mind, your blade choice can come into play here as well. A flatter surface can lead to more contact being made with opposing bays. Since the idea isn't to burst the opponent, you don't have to be as concerned with trying to catch the protrusions on the opposing ratchet when picking your blade. I also would have thought that weight would play the largest role in smash attacks, but I've read from some that have tested 3D printed blades that are very light that they still had success with smash attacks, leading to the potential that blade shape is just as important or potentially more important than weight, so keep that in mind when putting your bay together. Again, I need to emphasize that this is just what I've learned so far as a new player doing my own research, and I urge you to check in the comments because there are always great bits of information from experienced members of the community that either clarify or expand on what's been discussed in this video. So when you're deciding on what kind of setup you want, think about how your bay will be attacking and what parts will benefit you the most to achieve that style of attack. As always, if I've gotten anything wrong or incomplete, please let me know and I'll pin it so everyone can see the correction in the comments. Now, I think it's time for me to use this information to put my next tournament deck together.